The question is, do you agree that Scotland should be an independent country?
For me, the principle that we work best when we work together.
Well, they didn't.
Very serious.
The referendum. It seems to me that they're not dealing with the issues.
Hi, the Scottish Independence Podcast is your chance to hear some different views on what the Independence Referendum means for Scotland.
Hello and welcome to Scottish Independence Podcast number 21. For this episode, yesterday I spoke with Alan Bissett, who's a Scottish author, is very much in demand as a live act, and I suppose for the independence debate he became quite famous, or became quite involved in this debate with his poem Vote Britain, which became very famous very quickly. Before we get to the interview, I think I'll give you a little listen to that one, and I'll have a wee word with you at the end.
Vote Britain. People of Scotland, vote with your heart. Vote with your love for the Queen, who nurtured you, cradle to grave, who protects you and cares, most darling subjects, to whom you gave the glen she adores to roam freely through, the stags her children dearly like to kill. First into battle, loyal and true, the enemy's scared of you. That's why we send you over the top with your Och aye the new McTavish, Jings, Crivens, there's been a murder, deep fried fucking Mars bar, wee drama whiskey, hootsmon, there's a moose loose about this smack addict. Vote jock, vote sweaty sock, talk properly. Vote with the notes we'll scrutinise in our shops, might be legal tender but looks dodgy to me. Vote for the Highland clearances, bah. Vote for nuclear submarines in your water. Vote for the Olympic Games you didn't vote for, but you'll pay for it. You'll pay for it. Vote Conservative. Vote Lib Dem. Vote Lib-Servitive. Vote Condaber. Vote with a chip in your shoulder. Vote Labour. New Labour. Old Labour. Scottish Labour. Get back in line, Scottish Labour. HQ in Solihull will issue their commands to you shortly. In the meantime, just keep the vote flowing in from up there. Thanks. Goodbye. Subsidy junkie. Vote for any argument you construct in your defence being anti-English. Vote for Scots who make their career in Scotland being unambitious. Vote for enjoying your own culture being so parochial. Vote God Save the Queen and that bit about us crushing you all. Hush. There. Vote for Scotland being referred to as a region, like say Yorkshire or East Anglia. Vote for our voices dominating your media, but in no way telling you what to think. Take a drink. Go on, son. Take a drink. Vote for oil revenue, which we ensure flows directly from us into you. Vote for being told you're the only country in the world that could not possibly survive, and that without us you'd fall to pieces, like children abandoned in the wild caked in faeces. Vote Daily Mail and Rupert Murdoch and illegal immigrants killed Princess Diana and London, most exciting city in the world, darling. Glasgow is a very violent place, is it not? Do you have art? Vote with your heart. Vote empire. Vote tradition. Vote for our proud shared history of enslaving other nations and stealing their natural resources, bringing wealth and prosperity to the world. Being on the right side just once, and that's only because it was against your actual fucking Hitler. Vote for the hashtag Scottish Conspiracy at Westminster. Who really runs the show here, eh? Blair, Brown? Got your own in that time. We aren't allowed to vote on Holyrood, but you've got Archie McPhee pulling wee strings in our parliament when we wouldn't even think about interfering in how you run your own affairs. But while we're at it, this referendum, eh? Referendum is it? Have it now. Make sure it looks like this. Vote for very, very, very rich people patronising you. Vote for Glasgow having the highest knife crime and lowest life expectancy in Europe due to our generosity. You may thank us at your leisure. Vote for the absence of your history in our schools. All Brits together. Vote for our shock at your ingratitude. Vote for us saying, eh, when you open up your porridge mouth. Vote for bafflement about why you want the England football team to lose. We only want the Scots to win, except in referenda. Vote for psychopathic villains with your accent in a soap opera. Vote for tuition fees and student loans, ensuring that the brightest of your working class, since you still insist upon the term although our leaders had it banned, will one day rise and take their place in this great land. Vote for us deploying strategic references to Braveheart to dismiss you all. Vote for Robert Burns being called by Paxman sentimental doggerel. Vote for the Iron Lady. Such a strong leader. Gave this country backbone. You didn't really want those unions, industries and council homes. Just made the place look tatty. Vote for an unregulated banking class, lionising of the hard-working, wealth-generating, job-creating entrepreneurs who you will in no way refer to as greedy, selfish bastards. Give them your taxes. Vote for foreign war. Yes, sadly, some of you will die. But you will return to a hero's welcome, Jock. The Union Jack, proud symbol of integrity and honour, draped across your coffin, while your mother, dabbing at her eyes, recalls the words she learned in school in Kirkcudbright. There is some corner of a foreign field that will be forever England. Vote with your heart.
Hello, I'm with Alan Bissett here. It's great to get the chance to talk to him finally, because we've been trying to organise this for a while, haven't we? But,
yeah, we have. Sorry about that.
No, don't worry. But I suppose the first question is, and I've asked this with quite a lot of our guests, is why independence? For you, was it something that, it was just obviously a normal, natural choice, or was there a specific incident or policy or something that came about that made you think, okay, right, that's enough, we've got to do something here?
Well, there are certain points along the way that you can look at and say, oh, I became probably more in favour of independence at that point, or, that was pushing me further towards it. Because when I was young, I didn't really care one way or the other. I can remember saying, oh, it could never happen, we're too wee, we've not got enough money, it would fail, without really thinking about it, or without knowing why I was saying that. I think it was just the default position at the time. And as I got older, I was always fairly neutral on it, because you thought, well, it's never likely to come about, is it? Because we'll never be offered a referendum, so what's the point in thinking about it? Then when the Tories get back in at the last election, I was quite upset about that, especially because I'd voted Lib Dem, and lo and behold, they were propping up a Tory government. So it did make me realise, I've never been a Labour supporter, because the first time I was ever eligible to vote was in '97, and it was Blair, and I just thought, no, I don't trust him. So at Westminster, I've always voted Lib Dem without being particularly passionate about it. It was just preferable with the other two. And then I just thought, well, wait a minute, we've now got three main parties in Westminster that are virtually interchangeable. And this isn't what people in Scotland want. They certainly don't want the Tories. And the whole democratic deficit just became really obvious. It was staring me in the face. And when the SNP got elected with that landslide in the last Holyrood elections, it was a really powerful feeling, because it felt like something in Scotland had changed. It felt like we'd woken up, that we'd just started to see through the bullshit, and the whole country was kind of united on it. It was euphoric. And I've never felt like that about an election result ever, because you usually just kind of shrug your shoulders and go, oh well, more of the same. And that's turned out not to be the case. So I think it's a genuinely exciting time. I think it's a revolutionary time. I think Scotland is throwing off the shackles of a hideously conservative status quo, and I mean that with a small c and a large c. It's just become obvious that Westminster doesn't care about us, at all. So then you start reading a bit more about it, because you want to inform yourself, and you find out some of the things that have happened historically. Obviously Thatcher was right there in front of us. We could see what she was doing to the country. But things like the Macron report, it was discovered that Scotland had oil in the North Sea. The Tories in 1974 commissioned an independent report which said that if Scotland was to become an independent country and nationalise its oil industry, it would be one of the richest countries in the world. And here we are in 2013, and there's people in Glasgow can hardly afford to put their heating on, and we have poverty.
And we're having the same debate. They're saying that it's going to be the same with independence. Oh, there's no oil anymore and you'll still be terribly poor. The rhetoric hasn't changed very much.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't believe a word they say. And, then a bit more recently, 1999, Tony Blair and Donald Dewar redrew the maritime boundaries so that 6,000 square miles of Scottish water were rezoned to England, and what's in those waters? Oil fields. And that was done without consultation of the Scottish people. Theft, essentially. And this has been the historical narrative. And, you know, we should be fed up with it. I just think there's a much better country at the other side of independence.
One of the ways that feeling you've got now came out was when you wrote the Vote Britain, which kind of went viral, the poem, and it's very popular, and I think you've recited it a few times since then.
Yes.
It's been posted all over the website. I might stick it on the front of this podcast if...
Sure.
But what kind of reaction did you get to that when it came out? Because it obviously became very, very famous very quickly. What kind of reaction did you get from just people speaking to you? Did you become a lot more famous as a account of that? Did the media's attitude change towards you? There's quite a few ways that could go.
Yeah, writing and publishing that poem, I think, changed everything, really. It was written very quickly. It was written in the hotel on the island of Raasay in January 2011. What year are we in now? 2013. Sorry, January 2012. So just over a year ago. And obviously, when you're in the Highlands or you're on one of the islands, you feel 10 times as Scottish anyway, because the landscape does that to you. And Cameron had just got involved in the referendum. He was trying to commandeer it, saying, you know, you should have it now, and here's what it should look like. And then when you hear a Conservative Prime Minister telling Scotland what to do, you feel even more Scottish. And I remember feeling quite pregnant with something. And I went to this hotel and I sat down and I wrote it in about 2 hours and published it that day. And the reaction was immediate. And ever since then, well, several things have happened. One, I've now very squarely been pegged by the media as a Scottish nationalist, even though that's not true. I'm a socialist who believes in Scottish independence. That's now the way I'm regarded, I suppose, in media circles, as somebody who's quite outspoken and angry on these issues.
Has that made you a kind of go-to guy when they want an angry independence supporter, or has it made you a kind of, oh, don't speak to him guy, compared to before?
Well, I don't know, because in the room when people are having the conversation about who to get on a show about a particular issue. So, I mean, I've had to be kind of careful, because once you become known by the media, by a partisan media, as the angry Scottish guy, then that can be detrimental to the campaign, because what they're hoping is that you'll come on and rave and fulminate, and you can be written off in that way. So there has to be articulacy behind it, while not diluting the message. So it's quite a difficult game sometimes, really. But I think as long as the Scottish people recognise what you're saying is true, then you're on home ground, really. I mean, obviously none of it's going to play very well with unionists, but that poem, Vote Britain, I think not only people who were already convinced of Scottish independence, they saw it as a motivating piece of work, really. It was a poem that redoubled their faith. But people who were undecided, I mean, I've been told so many times now, oh, I showed that poem to my pal who's no sure about independence, and at the end of it, she was like, oh my God, that's exactly it. That's exactly what it feels like to be Scottish. I think it's, to use an old-fashioned 70s term, it's a consciousness-raising poem, because so much of our Scottishness is constructed for us by the media, by a media which is largely controlled from London.
Iron Brew and Jimmy Wigs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you actually think back to where that CU Jimmy stereotype comes from, I don't know if you remember, but in the 1980s, Russ Abbott was a character on a Saturday night TV show, a comedy show, CU Jimmy, and he had the kilt and he had the ginger hair and he had the tammy, and he was basically a barely intelligible comedy drunk.
Unfortunately, I do remember it. And do you know that his birthday is September the 18th?
Russ Abbott's?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, someone posted that yesterday. It's his birthday on the day of the...
There might be a certain poetic symmetry about that. But, if you were growing up Scottish, this is what you saw in the media as being representative of who you were. And what you get now is Scotland fans who've absorbed that stereotype, a racist stereotype, and essentially dress up in the ginger wigs and the tartan. Yeah, we are comedy drunks. Look at us, aren't we daft? And this is where our identity comes from. And I think a lot of the Scottish intellectuals and Scottish writers and artists who are of a left-wing sensibility have mined something a lot more deeper and through a Scottish consciousness, essentially. And, certain writers like James Kelman